the taxi violence, the standoff, unfortunately, it's orchestrated to kick off an election campaign. It's the politics of the dog whistle. Look how tough we are on lawlessness and impunity.
So you're saying that the law and order of the city of Cape Town, dog whistling to a certain cohort, is the spark that lit the fire of this violence?
I think there's nothing more than that. I think it was the kickoff of another election campaign that said to particularly minority communities, those who like law and order, those who are tired of taxis and the menace they produce on the road, the lawlessness they represent, the red robots they jump, the yellow lines they drive, the cutting in and so forth, the danger that they pose on the road. There's a massive constituency who every day wish they could do to the taxis what JP did over a week. And so that election campaign has kicked off. Because JP doesn't need to put up posters. He's got all his posters made. Those images that looks outrageous to some, that looks violent and brutal to some, breaking the taxi window, beating up the taxi driver, that's the fantasy of so many people.
Yes.
And that's the campaign that the DA has launched.
Now, also, I think that, there's blood on everyone's hands, so to speak, in the way that, as I said in the intro, commuters are the collateral damage. They are the ones that are bearing the brunt of this. When two elephants fight, it's the grass that gets trampled. Nantel, I think we've got a clip of people walking home. We can cue that up in the meantime, but I've got a comment. An all-round failure to address the political economy of the city's relationship with the taxi industry and the industry itself. Do you agree with this?
Look, I think it's a failure of governance as a whole. Certainly a failure of national governance, but an exploitation of provincial and local governance.
How so?
A studied withdrawal from the real issues, and then a performative moment in which we beat the hell out of the taxi drivers. After allowing the impunity to build up the frustrations amongst ordinary people to build up, and for them to witness this impunity, this lawlessness, and then suddenly knowing, and everyone who runs elections, and I've run quite a few, know that the electorate's mind is made up 6 months before the time. The 6 months to the election, it's just getting your supporters ready to vote. But the critical 2 or 3 months before that 6 months is when voters decide. And this is exactly the moment in which voters make up their mind about who they are voting for. Julius had his orgasm last week. The DA has had theirs this week. Cape Town was the stage that communicated to the DA base. And I'm now not speaking about a white base. I'm speaking about a white base. I'm speaking about a colored base. I'm speaking about the Indian base. And I'm speaking about a certain strata in the African base that is enamored with what they are seeing. Social media is telling us how the voters are deciding.
I've also seen sort of a shift in the sense of people expressing, I would say, the taxi industry losing the publicity war in a sense, losing that solidarity that commuters may have with the taxi industry for getting them to work and back. You say that there was that the DA had the climax, so to speak, and the ANC's response to this. Do you think it was on point? What do you have any assessment of what the ANC's political response to this electioneering by the DA?
I think, the ANC did not understand what was happening. They were caught like deer in the headlights, and therefore they went for a knee-jerk in the Western Cape. Defend the black taxi associations. This is BEE under attack. This is the uncaring nature of the DA. And every time they spoke, they confirmed the DA message that A, the ANC stands with the lawless. B, BEE is this BEE. Because now you're making BEE a lawless sector of the industry, and therefore BEE in mining, BEE in the marine economy, BEE in this, BEE in that. It all comes down to a sense of lawlessness, not knowing what you're doing, unleashing chaos in South Africa. So you confirm the DA dog whistle that BEE is a lawless attempt to take what doesn't belong to you, to do what you want to do, to exercise impunity. And so the reasoning, the dog whistle says what the taxis do visibly is what happened at Eskom invisibly.
This is what happens when they take over.
When they take over. You don't have to say who they are. Because the ANC is saying this is an assault on black economic empowerment. The ANC says they're only doing this to our townships. And the DA knows it has given up on the township votes. It has gone for the consolidation. It is trying to get the township votes after kicking out Maimani and everyone else. They're trying to get the township votes with a moonshot. Who can get the township votes? Come into alliance with us if you are truly against the ANC.
We're going to talk about coalitions later on, but I just want to play this clip of people walking home, and it's really...
The Cape Town taxi strike really left people stranded.
That's Claremont, I think. Okay, so I just want, there was a WhatsApp going around about the subsidies received. Now the figures are sort of basically a thumbs up because it comes from somebody who generally sort of sucks his thumb for stats. But the stats are, the principle applies. It said Golden Arrow moves about 250,000 people daily and they get a provincial subsidy. My City transports 35,000 people a day and they get a subsidy. The taxi industry moves 1.5 million people daily, but yet they get no subsidy. This is something that's unique to the Western Cape, whereas in other provinces there is subsidy for the public transport. I also have a comment from an insider. The only private public or mass transport operators other than minibus taxis who don't receive any subsidy are either paratransit operators in African countries, which are not held to the safety licensing standards that minibus taxis are, or dollar vans in New York and minibus in Hong Kong, both of which have issues with fleet aging, reliability, price gouging, etc. All to say there are basically no examples of affordable, reliable, safe, frequent, far-reaching public transport that is not subsidized. Do you feel that the failure to address the political economy of the taxi industry lies in the approach, or rather, the approach of the Western Cape provincial government and the city towards, I would say, keeping minibus taxis from being formalized?
Look, I think from what I remember, there was always a 25 million rand subsidy for transport in the Western Cape that went almost exclusively to Golden Arrow bus services. When we were introducing the idea that we partly got from Bogota, when we got the idea of mass transit for our people, we introduced what has now become the My City. But everyone will know about the Klipfontein corridor. My City was meant to be a solution to the transport problems of what we call the Southeast Metro, the N2 communities, which are black and colored, and not the northwest metro around the N2 going all the way to Milnerton. So you will know the bicycle lanes we had in mind. You will know the way in which we were going to run the kind of mass rapid transit vehicles down Klipfontein Road from the furthest reaches of Khayelitsha through Guguletu, Mannenberg, Heideveld, all the working class areas, and bring them into Cape Town and back.
On the My City.
On what was then, we called it Bus Rapid.
BRT, yes.
BRT.
Yeah.
Of course, when we messed up the elections in 2009, we handed the whole caboodle over to the DA. They took the idea but rerouted it and put it precisely in the Northwest Corridor to solve the problem of Milnerton people who sit on Koeberg Road in long traffic jams in their own cars, one person sometimes in a car. So they rerouted the idea entirely that way, incorporated Atlantis, but made it too expensive for the working people of Atlantis. And so the point of the matter is that 25 million was meant to create a bus rapid spine supported by three kinds of ribs: a train, a Golden Arrow bus, and a taxi service. And the taxis bring from a community to a terminus, the bus or the station, the bus or the train, and then move further, and the BRT is the spine of a system such as that. And the 25 million was for people to bid for routes. Whoever could bring people best from Hanover Park to the BRT or to a station gets paid for managing that route, in addition to the fares they charge. If the bus moves you from Mannenberg to Klipfontein Road or Mowbray, you get paid for that and you charge your fees. But the understanding is that that's a subsidy on the fees that you charge people. So the hijacking of the Klipfontein corridor and the BRT is what I would call the deliberate, built-in lawlessness that dominates the industry, the cutthroat nature of the transport industry, and the chickens come home to roost on occasions such as this. It is organized, built-in terror that is unleashed on the people. And today, we have a situation when the impunity of the taxis meet the perniciousness of the provincial and the local government, you get the tragedy that is visited on the people. And it is this that made people walk. It is this that have made people being killed. It is this that have allowed the torching of the buses, etc. The problem, though, is that every act of wanton violence confirms in the public mind why they can't be trusted with a subsidy, why they can't be trusted with our lives, why they can't be trusted with our roots. And so, in a sense, everyone walks into everyone's trap. And the ANC walks into the DA's trap by coming out completely with a knee-jerk defense and not even finding that middle road between condemning impunity and condemning the DA. The question is, did the city just come up with this? Were our councillors asleep at the wheel? Did they not ring the alarm bell ahead of time? Was it a failure of opposition that we are dealing with in the Western Cape? Or did the DA smuggle it in so deftly that no one saw it coming?
I have some input from an insider. It says, the issue at hand is that the city, industry and province met for months. They agreed on a process and the city just decided to impound. Now, in your experience as a former premier of the Western Cape, this input from the person says that, JP Smith, the MACO member for safety and security, was so out of pocket that now it requires the intervention of the provincial government Did you ever have to deal with a Mako member who was so out of pocket that you had to then intervene in the situation as the Premier of the Western Cape?
Now, look, I think in our time, what was happening at the city level was political to a large extent. They had more resources, disposable resources. We got conditional grants to run hospitals and schools and all of those kind of things. We had a very small grant that we could do with what we wanted to. But the city has a rate space, a tax base, that gives them the kind of largesse that they can spend as they want to. And that is why opposition, for example, in the city is absolutely crucial, because you don't need as much opposition, if I can put it like that, because the chances of you misspending your hospital money means that you may lose it next year. But in the city, when you're collecting all these rates, you're collecting water fees and increasing it, you're getting extra money on the meter electricity that you sell, you reduce the units even if the electricity is off for 5 hours a day. You're still making money. That needs enormous oppositional insight to be able to pick up what is happening. Part of an opposition is to have intelligence. Who are the officials that are decent? Who are you speaking to? Someone must come and tell you, listen, they're going to do this impounding thing. If people don't tell you, they're not trusting you.
Yeah.
Because they think you're just into political theater or you're not interested. And so really, this notion of opposition is, and we need to see whether this is a failure of opposition or whether this is a cleverness of governance, that the DA pulled the wool over our eyes.